All right. Terminator Resistance. I just recently played it. I talked about it in the Terminator Survivor video we covered, talking about the new Terminator Survivors game coming out. I had Terminator fever, so I just had to revisit Terminator Resistance. Now, I want to jump into my 2024, revisit or review of this game. And I just want to start with some of the, most obvious standouts or stand-ins, if you will, or some of the things that made the game stand out as essentially a $40 game. I didn't pay $40 for it, and to be honest with you, that was one of the complaints about the game when it first came out, that most gamers was like, yo, should we even pay? Like, is this game even worth $40? For starters, the game isn't necessarily open world. Like, each section is filled with tight corners and quarters and what have you, and the game is it's like mad linear. Like, it's just like a straight line. Yeah, you can branch out and do some open world like things, but for the most part, it's a pretty linear game, and that's not necessarily bad. It can be good, and we're going to talk about that here a little bit down the lines of this review. But I mean, the game was alright. The graphics looked good, especially in the interior sections. I played the game at 4K to kind of maximize the detail for this video, but the graphics were actually pretty good. Like, they were good. I think the Terminators looked good. The interiors, like the buildings, looked good. They were a little grayed out at times, but the exterior shots especially looked really good. Like when you stepped outside and began to explore the world. But the interior shots looked good. The exterior shots looked good. I mean, the gunplay was okay. The enemies were definitely not okay. The menu system was pretty straightforward and simplistic. Again, this could be both a good thing and a bad thing. I'm more so along the lines of it being somewhere in between, because simply, like, it was a little too simple, if you will. Easy enough to use, but you would just wish there was a little bit more flavor, or Teon made the menu system just a little bit more robust, right along with the crafting system and the crafting menu. Also just simplistic and minimal at their best, as you can see here. I mean, crafting was as simply as just like clicking on the necessarily items you need and just crafting them and finding the resources. Now, throughout the game, I didn't have a problem with finding resources. In fact, like, I would find items and objects in the universe world that I just had to leave behind because I didn't have space in my little bag or whatever that you get in the game. So while the crafting system was pretty rudimentary and basic, it still, served this purpose. Like, it was alright. So would I like to see a little bit more in the menu system? Yes, absolutely, for sure. It was just a little too basic. And the same thing goes for the crafting system. Like, there wasn't really much to craft outside of med kits, ammo, just little small stimulants and things you can use in the game, which, on that subject of gameplay, gameplay was real shallow, easy at times, like, and hard at others. Giving you an overabundance of supplies and ammo. Again, this was just not a problem. Between the overabundance in items and supplies, or like ammo and things, and the level of difficulty, it made the game way too easy. Like, this kind of destroyed the immersion a little bit. If you think about it, like just playing a game, like, it just felt way too easy. On top of that, there's not a lot of enemy variety. You got spiders, drones, your HKs, your turrets, and your mini tanks, if I remember correctly, and of course the Terminators. But the AI was definitely subpar, especially given the in-game lore that Skynet is like this hyper-aware, all-intelligent AI. So the fact that Skynet is using, sentient robots and machines to, to push their war agenda, if you will, or destroy or terminate the humans and what have you, then there should be at least some level of intelligence that goes in with the AI of the game. But it was basic at times. I mean, I hate to keep using that word basic, but this game, it kind of sums up what this game was. It's a basic experience, like pretty generic, if you will. And the lack of enemy variety and the fact that it made the difficulty like way too easy really held the game back. It necessarily didn't make it fun. It just made it way too easy. There were times, especially early on in the game, where stealth was imperative. Like, you had to use stealth. And like the first time you run into a Termi, it's your anxiety level is up. Like, it does make you feel like you're in the movie against this indestructible machine. but definitely would have wanted to see better AI, smarter AI, the enemy variety. There's only so much you can do. They did look good. Again, reverting back to the graphics of the game, the Terminator models look good. The HKs and the drones look like they were ripped straight out of the Terminator franchise, y'all. Like straight out of Terminator franchise. Teon, they get some points there for that. All right? Like they get some points there for that. And maybe you want to play a game that's easy and not challenging, and I get it, that's fine. But we as gamers, we want to be challenged by the games we play. And when I tell you, as you advance down the game and you level up your character, because there are some light RPG elements, and I say light because I mean it in the most sincerest of ways. There's some light RPG elements there, but once you level up your character and you unlock new skills, which there isn't many to unlock anyway to begin with, I want to get to that here in a second. But once you unlock those skills and you start to progress your character and you have better access to stronger weapons and what have you, the game gets way too easy. And another criteria or area that essentially destroyed the game's immersion was the voice acting.
How did your men let an enemy get that close to you?
We didn't know it was a machine. It could walk, talk, bleed, sweat. There was no way to distinguish it as an enemy. It infiltrated us perfectly.
As all TechCom units with weapon modifications.
Everything looks well organized.
It is. Everyone pulls their weight here. If someone doesn't, we become weak. And you can probably imagine where I stand on being weak.
Seems the repair might take a couple days. How's it looking inside?
There's a lot of supplies there. I don't like this! I don't like any of this!
I mean, Jacob Rivers, the protagonist you play, the voice acting was stale. I mean, it seems like the script wanted to accomplish more than it was originally intended to do. Now, that doesn't take away from the story of Terminator Resistance. Let me be very clear. Terminator Resistance is one of the best Terminator stories experience we've had in a very long time. From like a narrative perspective, the voice acting wasn't great. And if this was a movie, we'd be harping on, you know, the lead actors and actresses, you know, how they drove it home in the actual movie. But Jacob Rivers, the main protagonist of the game, the voice acting was a little stale. You never really truly see his face. And even the supporting characters, their emotions, their facial emotions look a little stale and dry. And it just seemed like you were talking to robots. And I really just skipped through a lot of the dialogue. I read it. I did this in Starfield too. I just skipped through a lot of the dialogue because hearing the characters and the NPCs talk really didn't do much. But one area they got right in the audio department is the sound design. Hot damn, the sound design is superb. The sound design did not affect the immersion of this game. In fact, it enhanced it.
He's from the Resistance. The others have to be here too.
The music, the sound effects, the pum-pums in the rooms, the robots walking around, just all of those things combined really made you feel like you were in the Terminator universe. You were a member of the Resistance. You were trying to accomplish the goal of making Skynet fall. And Teon really got that right in Terminator Resistance. They got it right in RoboCop, right? And some of their other movie-based IP games. But that's one area that they nailed. They got it right here, and that essentially saved this game. If the sound design wasn't right, if it did not sound like these, you know, audio references were pulled right from the movie, I wouldn't even play the game. I think I would have checked out very early on. But once you know, came across and engaged in combat with the Terminators and other, you know, AI Skynet bots like the HKs and the turrets and things, you know, you felt like you were there. Like you felt like you were in the movie or in that universe. And it just really enhanced the overall gameplay experience of this game. But but it definitely feels like it belongs in the Terminator franchise. The T-800 infiltrates a resistance unit. It wipes them out. It wipes out your squad, and that puts you, Jacob Rivers, on a Terminator list. You find out very early on, and you don't know why. You don't find out why until the very end of the game, which I was off on what the potential spoilers would be and what was exactly going on with the story, and I was essentially lost all the way up until the end of the game, which is pretty unique for a video game that's based on a movie franchise that's been out for over 40 years. But after that, the game kind of opens up after about 3+ hours. This is another con because it essentially drags, but after about the 3+ hour mark, it doesn't necessarily get good. I'm just saying it picks up after that. I'm not stating that give the game a chance because it gets better after 3+ hours. I'm simply telling you that the game doesn't get good till about 3 hours plus in, and that's both with the story and just the different enemy types. On the subject of the enemy types, I do wish there were NPC enemies that you had to go against. I think that would have just added the variety up a little bit and just not make you reliant on plasma and energy weapons against Skynet. But seeing human AI or seeing human NPCs, maybe other survivors or what have you, cats that don't get down with the resistance, it would have been nice that you maybe had to encounter light skirmishes, but the map wouldn't be big enough, as I imagine that would draw the interest of Skynet. But yeah, again, after about 3+ hours, you get better weapon customization, upgrades, and etc. You also get these chips from down Terminators that, gives you damage boost and ammo boost. And once you got the chips from them down Terminators that gave you those stat boosts, it essentially made the game just a little too easy down there. I mean, I was just mowing down Terminators to the point where they did not feel like it was a threat. But yeah, the story takes place in 2037, way down the line, near the end of the war, and essentially at the start of the Terminator mythos. Like, we know Skynet loses, but we get to see the story pan out. We get to see why and how they essentially lost. Not necessarily just, we know John Connor destroyed Skynet. No, we get to see it. We get to play it. We get to experience it. And if you're a Terminator fan, paying the $40, or if you can find it on sale, I paid a little over $20, and it was hard to, even justify it at that price point. But if you're a Terminator fan, this could definitely very much be worth the pickup for you. I enjoyed the game. I did not enjoy the voice acting. I did not enjoy the emotionless, stale presentation of the NPCs when it came time to trying to drive home emotion. It did have a weird and awkward intimate scene in the game that could have totally just been taken out, and having that energy and resource put to other areas that could have really enhanced the overall gameplay experience. But minus that, Terminator Resistance as a game, being what it is, not very long. It took me about 31.5 hours or 32 hours to complete the game. That's incredibly short for your boy Lab. I'm not going to dwell on spoilers too much. I was, kind of torn with showing spoilers or talking about spoilers in this review. I will say that there is one major spoiler that happens towards the end of the game that you may or may not see coming. I honestly did not see it coming. I had some other theories as to who this particular character might be and what their purpose, might be as well. But I was totally wrong once the game kind of ended, right, and the credits rolled. But there are alternate endings and just different outcomes depending on your choices you make. I went pretty straightforward, but I am curious to know what would the end game narrative, although obviously it's not part of the main continuity based on the decisions you make, but you could get a different ending depending on the choices you made throughout the game. But yeah, it took me about 32 hours to complete the game. I nearly maxed out my character in doing that in that short amount of time. And mind you, I didn't really do a lot of the side quests. I didn't do most of the side quests at all. So most of my experience points gained were from doing like terminal hacks and storage hacks and just downing enemies, completing quests, just the mainline quests. So the bulk of my experience came from doing those activities and not necessarily side quests. So if you're doing side quests, you might can push the game to about 40 hours. There are not a lot of side quests, and this is not an open world game. This is essentially a sandbox game where they're going to put you in a large area and maybe tell you there are about 2 to 3 places you can go, or 2 to 3 points of interest you can go that might lead to more game content, or you can just go to the main story content. But there are Terminators and just Skynet, patrolling the area, and depending on the circumstances or scenario, or given where you are in the game, you can find yourself surrounded with enemies really quickly here, or just burning through your resources, which they do come back to you. But being on that open world map, or that sandbox open world like sandbox map, the items either they just respawn, or once you go find them, they won't respawn. You may have to go to like the Merchant and Resistance HQ, or the team you're rolling with very early in the game, you might have to go to them and replenish your supplies. And while not a big spoiler, I will say John Connor does show up in the game. I'm not going to tell you when because it's also kind of crucial to the plot, and I guess in me wanting to avoid spoilers in this review because the game is already short, y'all, and just play it. I don't want to spoil it for you, just play it, but there is kind of like a big aha moment at the end of the game that takes place, and you know, I really want you to experience that if you are a Terminator fan. But if I was to rate Terminator Resistance, I have to give it a 6 out of 10. It's not good, it's not bad, and it's not great. It's okay. It's hard to justify the price given the amount of content in the game. The game edition I bought did come with the DLC. I just wasn't compelled to finish trying to play it. But yeah, Terminator Resistance, y'all. 6 out of 10. It's worth picking up if you are a Terminator fan and you can catch it on sale or for a deal like I did, because right now it's still retailing for about 40 USD on, you know, your Steams, your marketplaces, and what have you. And I can't say it's necessarily worth it at that price point, but you know, depending on how big of a Terminator fan you are, you probably, or maybe you've spent, you know, your hard-earned dough on other fandoms and what have you. So maybe spending $40 on this game may not be a bad idea, but it is worth playing. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. It's been your boy Lab here. I do hope to catch y'all on the next one. If you haven't yet, do be sure to subscribe to the Unlimited Mags podcast with the notification bell turned on. Check down the description box for more content and videos. And I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy.